there's something that is very important to note. If we contextualize the period that we're in now, and if we look for the past 2 years, it has always been in an escalating manner. So things were only escalating time after time. They weren't de-escalating. How? Israel comes up with attacks and genocidal acts and barbarism, ceasefire, and then they starve the people and they carry out more attacks and they kill more people. For almost a year, then a ceasefire. But in the meantime, full-blown war with Lebanon. Ceasefire, but also very fragile. Attacks against Iran. Retaliation coming from Iran. The retaliation and the attacks, both of them, increase. So the potential of something coming is now also greater than ever. Similar to the prospect of a temporary ceasefire coming, because a temporary ceasefire will not end the conflict. The conflict is going to continue after any potential ceasefire comes. But if we view it from a military perspective, the chances of having a greater war with even more destruction is likelier than ever, similar to the prospect of a ceasefire, because no war can go on forever. But so long as it's open, so long as it's happening, so long as there is no de-escalation, anything can explode. And Benjamin Netanyahu, if he's still concerned about the polls, and if he's serious about going to another term next year, or depending on when the Israeli elections will take place, most likely not in their already pre-planned time in October 2026, most likely earlier than that, Netanyahu would need to revisit his accomplishments. Why? Because, well, he killed many of the resistance leaders. He targeted Iran. The people in Israel are saying, well, you can't achieve more than that with the Palestinian resistance, and you attacked Iran. That's it. But the more time goes by, the more that moral victory, or as he sold it as a moral victory, even though it was garbage, by the way, because all of the threats against Israel are still there. The fact that some sides are practicing strategic patience or deciding not to respond at the moment doesn't mean there is no threat. They're doing that for their own calculations and own purposes, and as a reason to potentially surprise Israel at one point. Because a lot of what happens and a lot of the impact comes from the element of surprise. They don't want to be predictable, and they don't want to give in too much information. So all of these threats are there, but Netanyahu is losing that moral victory that he was selling to the Israeli public and to the world of, look, we attacked Iran, look, we killed the senior figures of Hezbollah and this and that, and we attacked here and there. The more time goes by, the more the Palestinian resistance publishes these images of the prisoners of war that Israel is supposedly waging the war for and killing them at the same time. Of course, it's a big lie. From the beginning, they were killing them. If they're not going to buy that victory narrative of Benjamin Netanyahu, because they'll tell him, okay, well, you targeted Iran, you targeted Hamas, you targeted Lebanon, you targeted all of that, but our people are dying. The same IDF soldiers, because who's remaining in Gaza now are only IDF soldiers, by the way. The same IDF soldiers who you sent to fight for the state of Israel and that you have a duty to protect, you're neglecting them and starving them and killing them and committing a Holocaust against them. In the Israeli words, by the way. So the Israelis are saying that. How is he going to have any sort of popularity? He's going to have popularity from the cult, but he's not going to have enough popularity to win another election. And it's only making it more difficult for him. Netanyahu backstabbed every ally he had previously. He backstabbed every person who collaborated with him in the elections. That's why Israel went through 7 elections in 6 years, primarily for the sake of Benjamin Netanyahu, who still was keen on and insisting on continuing in his role despite all of the corruption charges and cases against him that many people did not like, let alone the people who tried him as an ally or gave him an opportunity for their own reasons, and then recognized how much of a treacherous individual he is and how much of a psychopath he is. So based on the latest statements that are coming from today, regardless of what the intention is behind them, things are not looking good for a ceasefire. Netanyahu is clearly saying that, and they're blaming Hamas, of course, typical. Both the United States and Israel are blaming Hamas, saying that they're not serious about reaching a deal. So they're trying to justify going ahead and potentially escalating, or having some sort of mechanism to provide a very minimal relief for the population, and then continuing some military operations, even if they're not at the same intensity. But all of that means we are still going to be in an open war. And if the war remains open, it is extremely likely for it to escalate to reach way more destructive levels than ever before.